It's great to be here, especially it seems to be so hard to get anywhere these days. And Jan and I were just thinking when we were on the plane, this is the first time we've flown for years. This is ridiculous. I've got this international ministry, I never go anywhere. And thank the Lord for the internet, that's all I can say. What an amazing thing. But I was supposed to, a couple of weeks ago, I was supposed to be in India. We had this big thing all planned. Loads of people coming. It's in northern India, in fact in Amritsar. Anyway, we had everything planned, airline tickets, the works, and then the last thing, I'll just get a visa. You can get that online nowadays. Oh no, you can't. Because the Indian government, and they're quite open about this, in reprisal for the overly harsh, as they see it, lockdown that the UK had, which is ironic, seeing as the government at the time were being lambasted for not having a hard enough lockdown. Anyway, they've retaliated and they're not allowing any UK tourists into their country. So that's I share your shock. Even me. Well, yeah. Anyway, so that didn't happen. So here we are. Oh dear. So we don't actually get to do a lot of ministry together, Janemy. So that's another reason that it's really great that we're here. One of the times we did manage to go somewhere together was 30 years ago. That's not the last time. One of the times that sticks in my mind. We attended a conference in the UK, in Birmingham actually. Representing. There's always one. There is always one, isn't there? Nice. And it was one of those conferences that actually really did change the course of our lives. You know, over the years we've all gone to a lot of conferences, I'm sure, and let's be honest, a lot of them don't change our lives at all. I love going to conferences in America because they give you these great big binders with loads and loads of notes, and you think this is such an important time. Years later you'll unearth one of those binders and I wrote in this stuff, and it's all, didn't change. Anyway, I digress. This conference did actually change something because it was a conference that focused on building a church for the unchurched. What would it look like if you built a church that people who, if they ever did come in, wouldn't have to guess what to do? And this was particularly dear to me because in the first few days after I'd become a Christian, many years ago, I was living in London, if I say a hostel, I wasn't homeless. It was a Christian sort of setup. Anyway, they had a Bible study group there, which was really great. Never been doing anything like this before. So I went along to this Bible study group, and I was early because I was keen, and so it was in one of the inmates' rooms, and so I was just flicking through his newspaper because in those days people bought newspapers, and get to my favourite bit in the newspaper, the horoscopes. So I was just reading my horoscope, and don't judge. I've moved on since then. Don't judge. Anyway, so I said to my host who was in the room, do you want me to read your horoscope for you? So I saw people going grey, and the discussions were started as to where should we bang the stake in to burn him. And from that I learned, Christians don't do horoscopes then. Oh, okay. And it's always left me with the thought, there's got to be a better way of introducing people to Jesus than just hoping they'll get it and not be too heretical along the way. Anyway, so back to 30 years ago, this was a conference about what would a church like that look like. And where the primary focus is on reaching spiritually lost people and introducing them to Jesus and enabling them to grow into fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ, actually showing them how. What would that look like? Both of us realised over the few days of that conference that this is it. This is God's calling on our lives. And nothing else. It's a strange thing when you get a calling on your life, isn't it? Suddenly, two things happen. Suddenly, nothing else is going to cut it. And the other thing is, I've got to get back because somebody else will think of this and do it in my absence. No time to waste. I want to be in there doing it. And so we knew we had to spend the rest of our lives doing this. Now, of course, we didn't know what this meant. We didn't know, mercifully, we didn't know the scope of it. We didn't know the cost of it. We didn't know the all-consuming nature of it. I remember a few years ago, actually, on one of our wedding anniversaries, on the day, how are we spending our wedding anniversary? On our hands and knees, scrubbing a floor, as I recall, getting. It's a loo. It's a loo. Okay. Thinking, do you know, serving the Lord is so glamorous. So glamorous.
Yes, you're right front.
Yes, thank you. At least I was on my knees.
Yes.
Okay. So we felt felt the same thing actually in the first building that we bought. It was an old, what's this? An old, well, it's an old rugby club. That's right, with a bar and toilets and that. And I was taking pipes out of the old cellar with like 15-year-old stale beer still in the pipes. Again, thinking, thank you, Lord. Anyway, over the 30 years since that conference, God's led us to establish churches that we ourselves have planted, a ministry called Treasure Seekers, which is amazing. Actually, it got Jan to go and see the Queen and to get invited to Harry and Meghan's wedding. I'm glad you didn't go to that. I think I forbade it. It'll never last. Anyway, we started a network of churches and ministries around the world. Some of those churches we've planted. Others, very much like here in Spain, you're doing your thing and have been doing so for years, and we're pleased to partner with you. And perhaps we can look at that if we've got time a little bit more. We'll have time a little bit more what that looks like. But so a whole mixture of things. And overall, this is called Kingfisher Family. And it's actually active in about 13 different countries. We're planning, we're hoping to launch a church in Thailand pretty soon. Pattaya Beach. Anybody interested? Yeah. Can't get people to go to Zimbabwe for love nor money, but anyway, my background is Church of England. I grew up in the Church of England, and I was ordained into the Church of England in 1990. Jan, you're more of a Methodist gal, aren't you? Well, that's where you became a Christian.
That's where I became a Christian.
Yeah, and we both heard the call of God at that conference, and that call to launch a church, and then a network of churches that would become places where people for whom God was not even on their radar. Just, why would I? Nothing whatsoever to do with me, could come and find hope and meaning and eternal life. And we've been privileged to see that happen at the churches that we planted, at the churches that we pastor, and churches that are part of Kingfisher Family all around the world. It's such an amazing thing. A couple of years ago I was out in the Philippines baptising 70 people in a mass baptism. It's amazing. We did it in a swimming pool, and a big part of the number of people who are getting baptised was from a tribe called the Dumagats, who live up there, on a mountain, up a mountain, and they never never seen a swimming pool before. Wow. So they arrived, loads of them, saw what the swimming pool, they're straight in, as we hauled out, not yet. But what an amazing gift that was, a privilege that was to be able to do that. And we've been privileged to see so many people for whom church or Jesus, or anything Christian at all, is just not on their radar at all. We've been privileged to see so many of them come to know Jesus. Just so far this year in northern India, over 1,500 people have committed their lives to Christ in the ministry that we have there. Even though there's such persecution and opposition in that country, and by the by, as I'm sure you're very well aware, it seems that the greater the persecution, the greater the opposition, the greater the relevance of and the power of the gospel, and the number of people who commit their life to Christ. Maybe it's because they see that Christians really mean what they're saying and are prepared to live a life that is going to disadvantage them, and maybe the attempts to make it oh so relevant and oh so you'll hardly notice. It's just a bit of an add-on to your life. Maybe that doesn't work. No. Maybe people actually do need to be presented with the radical gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen. Right at the start of Kingfisher's life, God gave us a prophetic word that has come true, so I'll share it with you. That there were to be 3 sets of 7 years. Not just that, but the next 21 years, there will be 3 sets of 7 years. And each of those 7 years, back-to-back 7 years, would be 3 particular eras of Kingfisher. And we can testify that prophetic word has come true. The first set of 7 years was to be a season marked by struggle. Not to say the struggles have stopped, but just that was a really dominant feature. It proved to be the case as we launched our initial congregation, actually in the back room of a tyre factory, just a little room, and we experienced a really hard time. It was a hard time financially, that's for sure, but in terms of being accepted by other churches in the city, or rather not being accepted, it's quite a rural, traditional kind of setup we have in Gloucester, and so this was a bit of a disruptor of a church, to be honest. Now actually, any new church has experiences birth pains and early difficulties. In church life, a new church tends to attract quite a few people who come along for the excitement, and because they think that I don't want to be okay, I do want to be. I have observed that brand new churches attract people who think I can influence this. I wasn't too happy in my last church, and they didn't take any notice, but I'm coming into this church and I can influence it. So new churches, I have noticed, tend to attract such people, and of course it never ends well. And people like that can be a real red herring. And as we grew quickly over the first few years, the people that we attracted were often not really bought into the vision. The vision is, it's not about you. Fundamentally it's about Jesus, and secondly it's about the people who don't know Jesus. It's not about you. We're going to look after Christians, absolutely, but we're doing this to reach lost people. And a number of people didn't quite get that, and so they moved on, but never quietly. If I'm going, so's this place down. So I think that the growth pains are most acutely experienced in the early years, and that was certainly our experience, whether that be the early years of the whole church or the early years of a new pastor, if I'm honest. They are both, it's a roller coaster. There are both incredible highs and lessons learned, if I can put it that way. That's why your new pastor needs people praying for him. Absolutely. Second set of 7. That was the first set of 7 years. It was a struggle.
I'd be giving up.
Well, oh yeah. Second set of 7 years would be a season marked by restoration. Restoration in terms of a restoration of the vision and healing and a confidence in God's plan and forward momentum as we moved forward with the people that the Holy Spirit actually was bringing along, and actually did have a heart for what Kingfisher stood for. Tell you what, the lesson I learned out of all of this, and I've learned it again and again and again, numbers aren't everything. Jesus didn't have an incredible number of followers when he was hanging on the cross. The Moonies do. The Mormons do. The Muslims do it. Numbers, it's not about numbers, it's about heart. And that's what I think certainly what the wise leadership will look at, not how are we growing, but what's the health of the church. It's far more important. One of the lessons that we learn as a result of the first 7 years and sought to put into practice in the second 7 years, I just offer this to you because it might be relevant to you as well, was the realization that vision leaks. Vision leaks. It leaks at an alarming rate, and it needs to be restated again and again. And crucially, it has to be transferred from this document that you've got, our vision, the vision statement, whatever you've done with it. We used to put our vision statement and our core values up laminated, you'll understand why in a second, in the men's toilet. I don't know about the women's, I never went in there, but the men's toilet, and they'd be put up on the wall in an appropriate place so you can't miss it, let me just say that. Really used to annoy some people who weren't Christians who went in there and they're, that's all they can see. But it's a thought, but then it's got to go from there into your life. You actually need to live your vision. And this whole set of 7 years, second 7 years, was as much about learning to live the vision as anything. And I want to, if I've got time, I want to talk a little bit later, who knows, but against how we can guard against vision leakage for the whole church, to keep vision right there in the forefront, from what we've learned anyway. Anyway, at the end of the second set of 7s, the era of restoration, we planted our first church out. Such a prophetic time to plant that. Kind of set the seal on this season of restoration. This is what God had called us to do. We hadn't given up, and now we planted that second church. The third set of 7 years was to be a season marked by maturity. Not that suddenly we all grew up and that there were no more struggles and fallings out and disagreements anymore, but that we would start moving into more of the fullness of the plans that God had got for us. It stopped being, do you remember we were going to launch a church and a network of churches to reach lost people? Do you remember that? It's actually, we were expected to be doing it, And it was in this period that he opened up for us the international ministry that has become Kingfisher Family. How this happened was that I'd written a book called Fishing for the King, and experience has taught me, never ask, have you read my book? It's crushing. But anywho...
I dusted it yesterday.
You dusted it off?
Yeah,
I bless
dusted
you.
your book. Yeah, and I went like that down.
Did
I
you?
did.
Look under your coffee tables, folks. If they're not wobbling, it's one of them. So, the publishing house had a deal with the third world, the developing world, sending Christian books out. Great initiative. Sovereign World it was. And one of the books they sent out to Malawi was Like Fishing for the King. So it ended up in the hands of a pastor there who wanted me to go and do some talking stuff and so on. And I was so relieved that I couldn't afford it. The thought of going to Malawi sounds awful. And then, unfortunately, this load of money came in, which meant that I had no excuse. I had to go. And from that relationship, I had one relationship with that one pastor in his small church out there. It's grown to what it is. And during that third set of sevens, apart from the international ministry that launched, what also launched was Treasure Seekers. Jan will tell us all about it, apparently after a break, but it's in essence, it is a ministry to reach people who have got mental health issues and personality disorders, learning difficulties, lost people. It's awesome. It's awesome. The Queen thinks it's awesome as well. And we'll come back to that after you've had a break. Here are some things that we've learned after 30 years of doing this. And incidentally, before I get on to that, let me just say this. Do you know how significant in the Bible the number 30 is? The number 30 is the time at which you come of age. So if you think about this, Joseph, Technicolor Dreamcoat Joseph, was 30 when he became Prime Minister of Egypt. Ezekiel was 30 when he became a prophet in Israel. Priests who served in the temple started serving when they were 30. Jesus, he was 30 when he started, and so on. King David, he was 30 when he became king. Saul, before him, he was 30 when he became king. 30 is the time that you grow up. And apparently. Or maybe the second time or the third time round, who knows. But in the Bible, you're a child until you're 30. And then you are expected to take on adult responsibility. You come into the fullness of what you were doing before then, but now it's done with an adult sense of responsibility. Kingfisher family is just in January hitting 30, and we feel this is a very prophetic time for us. All that we've been doing is going to move into all that we are going to be doing, but in a greater, wider scenario setting. Anywho, putting that aside, here's some stuff that we've learned that I think is maybe relevant. Number one, and this sounds blindingly obvious and blindingly difficult for churches to actually live by, and it's this: God is God and we are not. This is now the catchphrase for my life. God is God and we are not. Just be faithful and obedient to his leading, and he will do the rest. I mentioned earlier, what we've come to realise is church growth is not our responsibility. Church health is our responsibility. We focus on the health, he focuses on the growth. And if we focus on the growth, what happens is the end always comes to justify the means. And what do we need to do to get more people in? You know, a bit more razzmatazz, the dancing girls, the dry ice, whatever. It never ends well. God is God, and we are not. And I am very grateful that he did not show us what lay ahead before we started. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have started, we definitely wouldn't have kept going, because it has been more scrubbing of toilets than we ever imagined. More glorious as well, more glorious and more wonderful, but definitely it's in his wisdom that he says, look, I am God and you are not. Don't worry about all that lot, just take the next step in faith. Here's another thing we've learned. Cling to the core values. Hold lightly to your methodology. What does that mean? It means that yesterday's methods reach yesterday's people. But the world is changing fast. Do you know, when we started Kingfisher, that one little congregation in that tyre factory, video projectors didn't exist, mobile phones didn't exist, social media didn't exist, the internet didn't exist, and you know, well, no offence, but we use LCD screens, you know, these days, and everything happens via Zoom and all of that. Well, it's left me behind, I haven't got a clue, but what I can say is hold lightly to your methodology, because that needs to change, but hold tightly to your core values, cling to your core values. And the reason I say this is 20 years ago, if I stood up in front of an average congregation and preached about morality, I'd be preaching to the home team. You know, one wife, one husband, sex inside of marriage, not outside of it, and so on, you know, the standard fare, yeah? And I'd get nods like that. If you do it now, by your own people, by Christians, you're called a homophobe and a narrow-minded bigot, and so on. We are not in Kansas anymore. We are not in the same world anymore, with the same values anymore. Now, does that mean we should do what I think a number of churches have done, which is to say, let's change the bar. Let's marry same-sex couples. Let's you know, do all sorts of things. Don't want to spend time thinking of the list, but you know where I'm going. You know, I'm getting out there. So should we do that? Because I mean, you know, to be honest, that's what everyone is thinking. So I think that battle's lost. So let's just go that way. No, but the way in which we the way in which we communicate the message has to change. We have to change with the huge sweeping changes in society. But never let go of your core values, because the Bible is the Bible.
Yeah.
There isn't a 2022 edition. It's, you know, it's what was written in the first place. However, we're not going to reach people today in the same way we reached them in the 1980s or 90s. And the music's got worse, let's be honest. In the 1980s, that was decent Christian music. St. Graham of Kendrick, he was wonderful. Pinnacle. But we've got to reconcile ourselves to the fact that we've now got other stuff, haven't we? I give our worship groups a hard time back in the UK about what is this? What is this? What's happened to the old stuff, the proper stuff? The stuff when I became a Christian stuff. Vineyard. Whatever was wrong with Vineyard? Why you can't improve on this? Unless you throw in the odd hymn, well done. But things, they are a-changing. So long as they still talk about Jesus and not just fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
So cling to your core values, hold tightly to your methodology. We do need to regularly review how we reach lost people, how we reach them, how we speak language that they understand. Yeah, I'll be honest, my children, sorry, our children, I should say, half of it's your fault. Or joy, or blessing. They've all grown up, but from the age, well, the whole teenage years, we didn't understand a word they said. It's just, oh, what? Yeah, it's just, well, yeah, and don't look at my friends, don't talk to my friends.
So embarrassing.
The same for grandchildren.
Oh, I know. Oh, do you know, so we've got two, as you know, Harvey and Oscar, lights of our lives, apart from each other, of course. And when we take them to school, we used to be taking them and holding their hands, and we give them a kiss, you know, to send them in. And so Oscar, from about 100 yards distance, it's, don't hold my hand.
Yeah.
And he'd say goodbye in Tesco's car park when he managed it, so that, you know, by the time we get to the school, it's like, who? Harvey, who's a year younger, will still hold your hand. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
And I've convinced him from the word go that there is an unwritten contract between grandparents and grandchildren, and in this contract involves unlimited hugs and kisses, and that's just the law. And he still hasn't, I don't think, let go of the, obviously Grandpa says that it must be so. He's going to be so miffed when he finds out. Anyway, all I'm saying is, like I was saying, when we first started, there was no internet, there was no social media, there were no mobile phones, there were no video projectors, there were no personal computers. The way people got their information was via newspapers. Grandpa, why do you have a newspaper? Is it because old people read them? Or the BBC News. All of that's just changed in just 30 years. Now it's not news, it's fake news if you disagree with it. And there's no bother, no one bothers on social media to ask the question, is this true? It's out there. So I've taken it. So whatever is spoken, the filter of, is this true or not, has been removed. What does that mean for Christians who are saying there is one way, there is one truth? No, you speak your truth, I speak my truth. Isn't that thing? There is one way, it's one truth, it's one God, our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ. And the most outrageous lies can be viewed by millions of people before companies like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok and the like belatedly take it down. The message doesn't change, but the methodology to get that message out there certainly does. Now, we don't all need to become tech geniuses. You know, like I was saying earlier, we have communication methods in Kingfisher about which I know nothing. And I don't want to know nothing. I don't want to know all that stuff. Why would I want to know all that stuff? But I know people who do know that stuff. And that's kind of important. But we need to regularly review how people are trying to reach out to now to get their information. We need to understand that. And how it's packaged as well. So, I'll leave that there because I've flogged that to death. The third thing that we've learned that might be worth passing on, I don't know, is this what you might, no, don't ask, but this is what you're getting, but I don't know quite what you were expecting this morning, but maybe a feel for who are they, and this is who we are. People, here's the third thing we've learned. People are desperate to connect, but not necessarily to what we are offering them. We tend to offer programs, but they want people. They don't want programs, they want people. They want to connect with people who'll listen, people who won't judge, people who will care. We recently did, in fact, are we still doing it? Maybe we are, yes, a sermon series in the church that Jan and I pastor, called Works in Progress. Works in Progress. As part of that series, we interviewed several people in advance on camera who had started coming to the church since it started. None of them had been Christians before coming along, and a whole number of them now are Christians. And we asked them what initially brought them along, how did they feel their lives had changed since coming along, what was the one thing that God had changed in their lives, and what did they want God to do in their lives in the future. The answers that were given were really quite revealing. All of them said what drew them to church in the first place was that they wanted to connect, they wanted community. They didn't come because, well, you're talking about something that sounds amazing and wonderful. They said, yeah, we want to have some friends. All of them, when asked, what would you most like God to do in your life? All of them answered, I don't know. None of them was able to look to the future with any sense of hope or ambition. None of them. This is just a cross-section of society. There's no point in having hopes and dreams when your experience is that no good thing happens in your life. There is a whole society out there who have given up having hopes and dreams. They have no expectations. Our challenge is to connect people with the God who promises to give them a hope and a future. You see, what they need to do is come to learn, come to believe that there is a hope, that there is a future, and it's for them. It is for them. Now, this theme of connection is what underpins Kingfisher Family. Our heart is to connect churches and ministries around the world, planting where necessary, working with existing churches, such as yourselves, and ministries where possible, bringing people together in a common cause. We believe in the power of synergy. Synergy literally meaning together energy. You know, where the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. No. Put it together and you can do more than you can do apart. That sort of thing. Thank you so much. You have one job.
Didn't you do it well?
Yes. Phil, don't do that. You make me look bad. What we can achieve together through prayer, because of synergy, through prayer, through support, through encouragement, is greater than all we can achieve if we were just going alone. Why would any church want to be part of Kingfisher Family? Why? What are you to us? What is my brother to me? Kind of thing. Reference to Cain and Abel. Yeah. Well, because together we are stronger than apart. And it was with that in mind that we launched our International Day of Prayer around 6-7 years ago. This is something that actually I believe that you've participated in here at Mahaka, and thank you so much for that if you have. It's mobilised thousands and thousands of believers around, all over the place, to pray for each other's countries, for spiritual breakthroughs, for victory over things like the pandemic, for souls to be won for Christ. We're praying for each other. A couple of years ago, when we were doing this, you had believers in Macau praying for you. And there are churches in Africa that are seeing explosive growth. There are churches in India that are seeing literally the dead brought to life. Do you know, I met a person who had been dead and was brought to life. Had a conversation with them. I asked them all the wrong questions. I really regret that now. But it happens. It really happens. And these people are praying for you.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had anybody praying for me, I'd like to think that they're part of some great revival movement and they expected great things to happen in my country. You know, this is so powerful. This is so amazing. And it's this one event where on one day we get churches around the world committing to do this. It demonstrates how powerful being a family is. We all get to pray for one another. I mean, you can pray for Pastor Shibu in Panama as he brings the good news of Jesus Christ to Indian communities in that Central American country. You can know that, as I was saying, that Pastor Manga Singh, who is in Haridwar, which is the Hindu capital, or the capital of Hinduism, I should say, in India. He's praying for you, and you can know that you can pray for him. We started a little Bible college in Haridwar, surrounded by a lot of Hindus, and it's really hard to be a Christian there. We started a little Bible college for the few Christians that were there. They had this really brilliant way of doing Bible college. They say, like, okay, we're going to have a week, we're going to learn stuff for a week. Then, you're going to go out and do it. And a few weeks later, you can come back and we'll teach you some more. And then you're going to go out and do that. So during this Bible college, they decided, why don't we start a church? And they did, and Manga Singh is leading it. He's a phenomenal evangelist. That church now has something like 4,000 people in it. Not in one location, around Haridwar. 4,000 people. He writes to me every couple of weeks saying, I was at this meeting and this 100 or so people committed their life to Christ, and here are pictures of me baptising dozens of people. And I was saying to Ian this morning over breakfast, I was saying, I've received these things with a mixture of, this is amazing, and please don't ask, please don't ask. Don't ask how it's going in the UK. Oh, please. He's praying for you. This is an amazingly gifted evangelist, and you can pray for him. And what an amazing thing this is. Nobody needs to plough a lonely furrow. In Zimbabwe, there's a wonderful ministry to albino children. Sounds like a bit of a niche thing, but people with albinism are seen as being demon-possessed in Africa. And they're shunned and they're persecuted. And there's this wonderful lady, Pastor Aggie, who started a ministry, the Vano Paish Foundation is called, and that reaches out to them with the love of Christ. And we get to pray for them. We get to pray for that. And for the children of the Dumagat tribe in the Philippines who are being given the opportunity to get a life-changing education, to have a future open up for them because of something called the Dumagat Education Programme that Kingfisher family started and is doing. We get to ensure that these children can go to school and get an education, and you know, they grasp that, and we can see young lives change, and see them breaking free from the traditional options where young girls of just 12 years old are expected to marry and have children. Now they're saying, I'm going to be, not I want to be, I'm going to be a teacher or a policeman or a, or whatever, a nurse, a doctor. That's what we are. That's what we're part of together. Our vision going forward is ever closer relationships between the countries that are part of the family. Freely available resources to train and equip leaders. I think have you had our Call to Leadership course?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have.
We've got another leadership course just coming out in soon, December and onwards. And these we love to provide materials to enable leaders to grow disciples of Christ. A powerful prayer network that links around the world, the lost and the last and the least, reached with a loving invitation from Jesus Christ into a life-transforming relationship with Him. Oh gosh, that's far too much. Okay, forget that. Let me just finish with this. Right, let me just finish with... Where did that go?
Don't worry.
Okay, right, I'll talk fast. Let me just finish with this. Many years ago, when we were just starting out, we were given a prophecy as a fledgling church that we were to be a, quote, rescue shop at the gates of hell. Now we've seen this coming true as we've reached out to those who are so incredibly lost that they have no hope. Obviously through treasure seekers that reach people with severe mental illnesses and personality disorders and so on. But whether it's reaching them or reaching the Dalits, the untouchables in India, or the Dumagat tribes people in the Philippines, or prostitutes in Pattaya in Thailand, we are called to be a rescue shop at the gates of hell. Now there's a lot of witchcraft in the centre of Gloucester, surrounding a number of the buildings that we have. We're surrounded. They've been given spiritual permission to be there and prosper. Controversial statement coming up, because the cathedral welcomed in the Harry Potter filmmakers to film parts of the Harry Potter movies in the cathedral, thus establishing witchcraft as an okay thing, right at our heart. And lo and behold, a load of witchcraft shops and tarot reading places sprung up all around. And so we are at the gates of hell right there. In fact, oh no, it's not. I was going to say, in fact, one of the shops is called Hellbound, but it's not, it's called Spellbound. But anyway, you get the thought. And they teach you how to cast spells and so on there, and how to become a witch. They were so successful at Spellbound, the Hellbound shop, from a business point of view, that they opened a cafe just next to us called Hubble Bubble, would you believe? Next door to them is a New Age spiritualist shop offering, this is sick, not just offering courses in Reiki and astral projection, but selling books on astral projection for children. Children's books. Teaching children how to astrally project. And, so, just recently then, as if that isn't bad enough, I'm going to end on a high note, don't worry. I'm landing the plane. 4 or 5 doors up from us, a new shop's just opened, painted in black. The logo for the shop is a pentagram, and their strap line, their phrase is come into the darkness. It's a gothic horror place that revels in being anti-Christian.
It's got an altar to Satan as well.
It's got an altar to Satan in the shop. Yes, you can go in there and spend a moment contemplating your doom. Having been consistently praying for victory over the spiritual darkness of our city, as we do regularly, with windows open and singing out, the New Age spiritualist place suddenly closed, The cafe closed down at the same time, Hubble Bubble, bubbling no more. The witchcraft shop has closed its doors and is only operating online, and that will be gone imminently. And we're praying for the pentagram place to close down as well. We just pray that actually never see a customer in there. It's wonderful. We must stop standing in front of the door, I guess. We take that prophecy of being a rescue shop at the gates of hell seriously, and we thank God for every inch of ground that is won. And we're still here today, and we're still praising God that He changed our lives on that conference.